Where's the love? Where's the love? It's right here in the heart of the city. I'm Silas Grant, and I got my man with me.
What's up, bro?
What's up, TL?
I'm great, man. Doing good, man. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Summertime seem like it's it's finally here.
Yeah.
I know it ain't officially summer, but
It flies so fast though. So
past Memorial Day, past the birthday. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Good.
How you feeling?
Doing good, man.
Yeah.
I cannot complain. The summer's going well. The warmer days are going good thus far.
Sure enough.
Pre-summer, I guess.
Yeah, man.
Late spring.
Birthday coming up, Jack.
Yeah, man. Getting old, man.
Man, it's a blessing.
Oh yeah, no, it is. It is. And you know what? I need to stop saying that. There's power in the tongue, right?
Getting better.
You're getting better. I like it like that. Yeah, getting better.
Getting better, man.
Getting better. We haven't talked since I did this, but I did a half marathon walk out in Maine about a week and a half
State
ago.
of Maine.
The state of Maine. Yeah.
I want people like that.
Yeah. So speaking of getting older, but
Like
still
Maine
getting
Avenue
better.
or nothing.
Nah, not Maine Avenue. Nah.
State of Maine.
State of Maine. Yeah, it was good, man. And that was one of the things I wanted to do this year was begin sort of like commemorating each year, because you just don't know like how much time you have left and making the most of it, right?
Yeah.
But it was a thing I saw online. I was like, you know what? Let me try that. And I had a really incredible time, man.
Nah, that's bro. We always joke and all that, man. But what you this journey you've been on, bro, has been incredibly inspiring. Not just to me, but to many people, bro. So just keep going, and the sort of that maximizing time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I used to do this exercise when I used to teach the classes about. You just ask the class, if you had 86,400, what would you do with it? And the assumption is always like that, there's money. But you ask them what they would do, and everything about it, people would talk about utilizing it to make them better, make their lives better. Helping people around them, and then you tell them, that's how many seconds you have in a day. You know what I mean? So like engage the world that way. And so you doing that, you maximizing time, you know what I'm saying? I love to see it. Again, I'm inspired by it. And it also just made me think about, just taking a moment. Lost a really, really good friend of mine, Tasha Ferguson.
Yeah, man. Really good spirit.
Incredible person, man. Somebody that was always looking to help other people. You know what I'm saying? Like really loved her family and friends, and just always looked to be of service and support to those that she loved like no other. You know what I'm saying? No questions asked. Losing her, it's just like incredible blow. And so young, still so young, so full of life. So to the point, man, maximize it. We none of us know how much time we got.
And it's funny, I remember meeting her in that era when we first were recording on internet radio the first time around, right?
Yeah.
When you had the DC Nothing merch. And I just always remember her being around in that period and just being so supportive.
For sure.
Yeah,
and
really good people.
Even, certain things of like, I know she had spent time and she had lived in Atlanta, and she had worked somewhat in the music industry and things of that nature. It's just giving me game about things that I could do or maybe should be doing, invaluable things, man. Again, shout out to her family. Shout out to Dimitri and Alexa, which is her children, her mom, you know what I'm saying, and all her extended family. So, we love you, Tay.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely good people.
Yeah, man.
Today is a special day for us, having another special guest who we've been trying to make this work for a couple of months now.
Yeah, for sure.
And we know he was super busy with some big work in front of him, but he got over that hurdle and is still doing the work. We're joined today by at-large Councilmember Robert White, the Democratic nominee.
Yeah. That's a fact.
Coming up in November.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, man. I'm glad to be with y'all, brothers. Man, I watch you often on IG, and I'm like, I love what these brothers are doing. Y'all are the right ones to do it. Like the depth of the conversation, always just, these conversations led by DC natives with the life experiences that y'all have had. I've been looking forward to joining you.
We appreciate you, man. We appreciate it, man.
So last week there was the primary and you were the incumbent in that race. You won by what, 86%, I think it was?
It ended up being 82, 84%. Yeah.
What I noticed, which was when I think back, normally that race is packed with challengers. And you've been in office now how many years?
7.
7.
Yeah.
What does it speak to when you only have one opponent as an incumbent? Like, do you feel that the candidates feel like you're doing a great job, or the voters are, feeling that way? Because normally you would see like 12, 13 people in that race, right? And to only have one opponent, that really struck me a bit. Like, so talk a bit about just, I guess, the confidence people have in you as a result.
It's I mean, first of all, it's a blessing. I saw no path here when I was young. Like, nobody in my family was in politics. My dad listened to talk radio, so I'm always listening to it. He always talking about Barry, and but I every morning I wake up, and like, even on the roughest days, I feel like I'm so blessed to be able to do this. And my hope and belief is that it shows in my work. So there's always a backstop. Like, campaigns be what they are. At the end of the day, if you're not doing anything with the time, challenges are going to come for you, and you're going to be vulnerable. And I think being unchallenged in my first reelection, and then only one challenger in this one, I think people just believe that I'm doing the work, and I think they think I'm doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, and like, I think that's a, hearing you say it that way, I think in between, so elections are what, 4 years apart, and people, I think they gauge, what have you done since the last time I voted for you? You know what I mean? Have you been responsive? Have I felt like the things that either you introduced, the things you supported in terms of laws and policies, did it positively impact my life? And I think people look at, especially, like, I think all voters, right? But voters also have to, I know voters from my community, let me say it that way, I feel like need to feel like that the person that they're voting for is a person that sees them, right? Yeah. So my question along those lines, though, is like, and now you're going into your third term, and over the past 7 years, the city has continued to be even more diverse, right? And I'm not just talking about racially, right? And you're an at-large member, right? Yeah. I'm just saying there are so many pockets of people with different interests. How do you approach being able to make all of these different interests, or at least as many as you can, feel like you see them?
Yeah, I give away all my secrets because I want people to know it and replicate it and judge it. But there are two things. One, I think when you're in public office, you've got to have like a North Star. Like, you've got to be driven by a certain thing or certain things, and that shouldn't change. But then you have to, if you want to be successful, be able to respond to the moving dynamics in between there. And so I heard somebody say once, many times, don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where the puck is going. And so, for instance, one of the things that I believe we really need to make progress on is vocational education. This ain't no secret, right? We've known this for some years. Folks in our community have been talking about it for years, but now there is a hyper focus on juvenile crime. And so when you say to the people, hyper focus on juvenile crime, one of the best ways to address that is through vocational training. All of a sudden you have not just the people who cared about vocational training for all these years, but all the people who care about crime too. And so you got to be strategic and keep that North Star, but try to marry the things that people are concerned about so that you keep moving the ball forward, even if the ground is shifting underneath you. So, you can't move your eye off that, that North Star. You can't move your eye off that ball, but you got to be able to move, Yeah.
That's a very good way to describe it. I've not heard anyone speak to it in that regard. I like that a lot. So with that being said, when you walked into the Wilson building 7 years ago, did you have that already in mind, or when did you pick that up? Was there a particular instance where you were like, you know what, this is how I got to navigate now?
Yeah, I've gotten rocked a few times, right?
Yeah.
So I came in, and I guess anybody is naive when they start something. The question is whether or not you're going to learn and grow. And I thought it was good enough to just be oriented toward the right things. But then when I'm oriented toward what I believe is the right thing, and people are focused on something else, and you're not talking their language, they don't want to hear you.
Yeah.
And so I have been in many a community meeting where people were just really shouting me down, saying, like, you're talking about stuff we don't care about. And I had to listen to that and receive it. And one thing I do, I think, well, is look for and receive critical feedback. Because I don't think it's the end of the world. I think it's the beginning of your next move. Mm-hmm. So, I got that wrong enough. So I went back to the lab, studied it, tried to figure out what do I do, because I'm not going to change, who I am, what I'm really striving to do in this city. And just over time, I learned that lesson the hard way. I also, to your point, Tony, between my first reelection 4 years ago and this one, when I was going into my reelection 4 years ago, I felt like myself and my team were good, maybe even really good, but not great. And to diagnose that and what needs to happen, basically, to cut through all the junk, if you are leading a team and the team isn't great, that means the leadership is not great. And so I had to look at myself to ask, what do I need to develop to be a better leader? And over the past 4 years, I've worked intensively at becoming a better leader. How do I lead, motivate my team better? How do I make better decisions? How do I get more done? How do I organize my team better? Everything about strategy and in leadership, positive leadership, that's been like a large focus. Like, that's what I do evenings, weekends, early mornings. I figure out how to be better at what I do.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because being a former staffer, right, in the council, I'm wondering, like, where do you draw time to really consciously develop? Because you're looking at policy, you're looking at budget, you're looking at committee, right, then community work. And man,
kids.
Yeah,
and kids.
Right, family as well, right? So I guess my question, to kind of dig deeper into that process, like, was there a source, an outlet, a person, a group? Like, where did you draw from to get like that concerted effort to develop?
So the two things. One, the time came because there is no more time. And so you got to use your time better. So what I started doing was I started listening to books, because finding time to read books is impossible, especially when after all the work stuff, I had young kids and a wife. So when I'm working out, when I'm biking, running, driving, I'm listening to a book or a podcast on leadership, on strategy development. But there was a guy named Mahan Tavakoli who has a podcast called Partnering Leadership. And somebody that I reached out to, because the first thing I do is I ask a question. I ask myself, who is the best executive I know? Basically, the person who can manage teams, get the most done. And there was this guy named Chuck Bean who, when I was chair of the Council of Governments, he was the executive director, and he led a team of hundreds of people. And he was always 3 steps ahead of all of us, the elected officials, his staff. Right. So I called him. I said, how did you get so good? And he said, Mahan Tavakoli. And so he said, you want me to put you in touch with him? And I said, yeah. So I called him, and, Mahan helped me start like sort of directing and mapping out like how I can learn better, how I can get better. And I just never stopped learning from there. He helped me figure out how to take, all of these raw parts and motivations and pull them together, and then sort of like become even a better learner and a better leader. So it just, you just got to take the steps, every little step, over time, you realize you come a distance.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, did you see somebody's team or something that made you say, you know what? Or did maybe a situation happen like, okay, yeah, we got to sharpen up here. Yeah. And it's probably, I would assume that, is a lot of, little instances that and because I know for us, right, I tell Silas a lot, like, where I really borrow. right? Like I truly borrow from people. Like I'm inspired by people around me all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, okay.
Yep.
Let me see. You know what I mean? But I think that's you just listening to you saying, even ask like, who do I think does this the best? Let me ask that person, and then he refers you to the guy who took time to share it. Then so how do you bump notes like say, all right, man, I did this, and this person advised you consistently, or was that like a one-time deal?
No, I go back to him all the time.
Okay.
But he's like me, like both of you. Like, people ask y'all for, advice and thoughts all the time. Sure. But if somebody asks you for advice and they come back to you and say, I did it, what do I do next? You're not going to leave them hanging. Yeah, you can't. You recognize that hunger, like you respect it. You actually respect that. So I think he respects sort of my hunger for knowledge. And so I keep going back to him. But I've also found a lot of other resources because he'll point me in a direction and I realize I can pour through this stuff sort of nonstop. And then, I might kind of hit an issue that I don't know what the next step is, or I don't know how to, find the resources. And I'll go back to him, and he'll just keep sort of lighting the path. And I try to do that for other people. And like when we all do that,
what they say, each one teach one.
Right.
Yeah. Have you always been that way though, in terms of your quest to get better? Like even prior, like I ain't just talking about as Robert White, the at-large council member, but just Robert White. Yeah. Like, have you been that? Has it been a trait of yours?
Yes, because I had to figure things out. So I'm a lawyer now by training. I studied at Oxford, like all these cool things. But before that, and not even too long before that, like I was a failing student for most of my academic career. From 3rd grade until 11th grade, I failed every single grade. And eventually I realized around like 9th, 10th grade, I said, nah, I'm not going to do this with my life. Like I actually want to like be something, and I believe I can. Yeah. But there was no evidence, so most people didn't believe in me. What I found out was I discovered that I was a good writer. And once I discovered I was good at something, it helped me believe I could be good at other things. And so what happened, my brother, who's only 15 months older than me, this dude is so book smart, it's sickening. Like he never had to study. He doesn't have to work hard. He just, just so easy. But what happened is he never learned how to work hard. For me to go from a failing student to the things I've done since, I had to learn how to work really hard. And so like I just learned how to work much harder than everybody else. And once you do that and you start getting some successes under your belt, you start to believe, I can learn anything. I might have to work harder, but I will work harder than everybody else. So it made me like what most people call like a lifelong learner. Like I believe that I could do anything. If I decide I'm gonna do that thing, I'm gonna do that thing. So
most people look at hard work as being like measured by duration. And I'm wondering, for those that are listening, sometimes hard work is doing the hard thing you don't want to do. It may not even take a long time, right? So can you kind of go a little deeper with hard work? Because I don't want to just leave it there.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I think it is just always taking the next step, whether it's, even if the next step is the first step, because usually when you're trying to accomplish something, you don't exactly see the path between where you are and where you're trying to get to, but you gotta take a step, and then after that you take another step. So the hard work is really just being dedicated to it, however long it takes. But like hard work and working a lot are not the same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but you've got to put in the time. I guess it's understanding there are no shortcuts. I think that's the biggest thing. There are no shortcuts.
Yeah, and like me hearing you say like what started out as being work that was hard to you, as far as a student.
Yeah.
But then you grew the ability, right, the muscle memory to like when I engage an issue or I'm seeking something, this is the level I'm gonna be at. You know what I mean? Like even if it's like, I feel like or sometimes doing the things that other people either can't do or won't do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you going to Maine walking I'm just playing, but not for real. But like some of that, you walking every day for 500 straight days, 1,000 days. Like seriously, bro, that's
It's more like 1,500.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
See, no disrespect. Think about that. I meant to say 5 years, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. But think about that. 1,500 days. So is walking hard, right? Ideally, somebody would say, well, no, it's not hard to walk. When you going out there, no matter what the weather's like, right?
You, you gotta be a little bit of a maniac.
You feel me?
That's exactly
You
it.
feel me?
That's
That's what I'm getting at. You know what I mean?
Like on day one, when like you got to wake up, you finish walking, maybe your knees hurt, your quads hurt, and then you get up and do it again.
That's what
You
I'm
know,
saying.
and believing that one day, like you're gonna be good at that, you know, and that like it's going to change the shape of your life. That's hard to do on day one. So the hard work is the dedication, you know, because I'm sure walking is a lot easier now than it was some years
But
ago.
it's still some days where you don't feel like doing it. Friday, it was nice outside. I didn't feel like walking Friday. But you just had to
Right,
do it.
because you might but your why that's what I'm saying. That thing that make you say in spite of right. I'm gonna do it. I heard this snippet from Will Smith interview. You know, they're around promoting Bad Boys, the new Bad Boys. And he was saying that people underestimated like the distance between good and great. Like you just talked about trying to take your team from being good to great. And he's like, people just really underestimate like what that process is like. And I never heard that in that way, but I understood that, right? I understood exactly what he was saying. And some people think that distance is clear. Well, his point was because people assume that it's closer than what it is. That if I just, you know, did a little bit more, that's not going to change the gear from good to great. You got to kind of do that. That deep dive, like what you described for us, that you are embarking on, or you have embarked upon to try to, you know, intentionally get your level or your team's level. But to what end? It's my question. You want to improve that team in order to do more of what?
More great. And what that means is two things. One, like there's a point at which I won't be in public office. And I got to look back and know for a fact that I didn't just take up space or hold space, but that the city is different and better because I was there. But also, like, I lead a team, and those people should be better when they leave me than they came. And they should know, like, they should be significantly better when they leave me than the way that they came if I'm doing my job right. And all of this comes to leadership mentalities. Like, I put in the work to make sure I can coach and help and motivate the members of my team, because the better they are, the more good they're going to do in the world. And then they can pour into other people. So, you know, it's expanding that work. But the other thing I should say is understand, going back to this question about what is hard work, the cheat code is asking, right? Figure out who is really good, who's great at the thing that you want to be great at, and ask them so they can avoid some of the missteps too. Like if I'm going to start walking long distances, I'm going to ask you what advice do you have? What mistakes did you make? That's it. Ask for help. Ask for advice.
That's really poignant from a standpoint of when we got back in the saddle with this. That's really why you're on the couch. Why everybody that's been on this couch has been there, right? So a person may not know you to ask you, but they can watch this and say,
yes,
you know what I mean, and say, oh, right. They can glean from you know leaders like yourself. That's really our hope with this, because we do recognize just how important that is. We may not be able to just call you up, you know what I'm saying, or the other people that have been, but this is a mechanism by which I hope people, if nothing else, watch these interviews to say, oh man, okay, I ain't think about that. You know what I mean? 'Cause that's important. I got a question for you as relates to, like we talked about the primary just ending. What was different about this race and out of the other races that you've been in? What was the difference with this one?
The biggest difference, I actually like debating, and I had never debated a 30-year entertainer. So I kind of picture yourself as like a boxer, right? You go in the ring with a strategy, win or lose the round, you go back to your corner and you're like, I got to make some adjustments. I had to make several adjustments during my campaign to respond.
It wasn't the typical politician on the other
yeah. And like
interesting.
Somebody who's been a professional entertainer for over 3 decades, they know how to work the crowd. You know, they present differently. They make the case differently, and it was really it was really interesting. And so that was the biggest thing, to be head to head with somebody who was not a politician. And in fact, it reminded me of the first race I won, where I was running against somebody who had been a politician for 12 years, and I think it helped me that I had not. And so it was interesting to feel like I was the person who had been in a seat for some time, you know, running against somebody who was not.
Was that? It took me a while, but was that video real with you guys debating that? It seemed like a skit. You know what I'm talking about? It didn't seem real to me.
I knew real to me. I was there. I was like, what's happening?
I knew it was real though, because
I saw it on my timeline, right?
Said I was there.
And there was no background. It was just y'all two, and the way it was happening, I was like, "Is this real?" Like,
it was wild.
Yo,
that's
crazy.
That was a lot. That was a lot. And then, you know, I guess after a while I watched it and I'm like, okay, this is real, but it's very different. But you on 2 occasions, one on Instagram with a regular picture, and then another one with a graphic, you talked about specifically the personal digs. And I felt like you mentioning that twice, that it had to have been something significant about that.
Yeah.
It did kind of get personal, just to be real, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, just that obviously was different than what we had seen before, but talk a bit about that. How do you respond to that?
And so this is a good conversation, because I did, the digs got personal, and there were just things that were said that just like he knew weren't true. And I had to figure out how to respond to that. Because a lot of people don't understand this about me. Folks who know me, I'm pretty buttoned up. That's my armor, right? Like, I present the way I do for a reason that has a long tail. When you've been like counted out as long and underestimated as long, I don't leave anything to chance. And so trying to go to places I was trying to go, I couldn't afford for anybody to question my ability. So I try to eliminate variables. So I learned how to button up, look the part until people believed I could play the part. But I'm still a DC dude, right? So, so when folks start coming for me, you know, I want to respond in a more natural way. But then I go back to my strategy and I say, well, if I respond, that puts more attention on the person running against me. And so it doesn't work in my favor. So what do I do with all that emotion? Like, I got to take that home. I got to deal with that in the gym, you know? And so dealing with it was difficult. And I'll say, Red and I got together after the campaign was
that's
over.
good to know.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. So I think there's opportunity for us to work together in the future.
That's great to hear.
Like, DC guys, like, I understand his frustration. I just think it was misplaced. But it was difficult to figure out how to respond, because you want to go for somebody's neck when they come for you.
And I can imagine, especially stuff that ain't got like no basis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, I ain't ran for none of that. I'm getting to just a point of like becoming somewhat of a, like, we're all human beings, right?
Yeah.
We all get emotional, right?
Yeah.
And it's just some things like I may want to respond to something.
Yep.
You know, whatever it may be, right? And it's like, I'm like, damn, no, but I'm a prisoner myself now. But that's a great thing. Ultimately, when you look back on things, you're like, I'm glad I got sort of that personal checks and balance where I do something that I would or say something that I would regret. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think, you know, we all are human.
That's right.
And that wasn't the first time I seen you kind of publicly address a situation. I recall there was a ballot initiative that maybe the council had overturned. Maybe I'm incorrect in that, but it felt like there was that. And you were in the grocery store with your daughters, and a man came up to you and was pointing at you.
Yeah.
I remember you telling that story publicly, and I think it for me, right, and I'm close to the process, right, but for me, it even made me step back and be like, man, these people are human. You can't just do that.
Facts.
That was one of the worst situations of being a council member. It was the Fair Elections Program, so public financing for campaigns. And one of the people who supported, so for the at-large race, I'm not going to get into all the details, but it's an imperfect process. So I'm using public financing right now. I got challenged in the primary, which means I spent most of my money. I still, as an at-large member, have to run in the general because we have 2 votes. Right. And if it looks like I'm not competing, people are like, oh, the Democratic nominee is mailing it in. But I will in the general election. Several people will raise more money than me because fair elections caps how much you can have. So I had to run a primary, but independents don't. So they're going to run in the general, and means they're going to have more money than me. So for strategic reasons, I didn't use fair elections 4 years ago. And this guy came up to me when I was in the library with my daughters on a Sunday. My baby girl wasn't even 1 year old, so she's in my arm. My oldest is 3. She's standing next to me. And this guy is yelling at me, pointing his finger in my face. And I am in real time, so a white guy, having to calculate, right, whether or not my girls feel scared and know that their dad will protect them, and how they will register if I hit this dude, and the fact that I have a baby in my arm. So he put me in an impossible situation.
Correct.
And it made me so angry for so long, and we got to understand, like you said, people are people, right? And we got to chill sometimes.
For real, I think that's and that's why I think sometimes people don't really understand like some of the precedents that's being set on a national level.
Yes.
Has impacts, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And people are losing their decorum.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're losing their sense of class, and they're no longer seeing people's humanity. Like, that does not give you carte blanche to engage with a person, especially when they with their children. Like, have you lost your mind?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's wild.
Yeah, man.
It's wild. But we have to be able to disagree with each other again.
Yeah, for sure. Matter of fact, let me ask a question on the I know, like, for the last, I guess, 2 elections, maybe even going back 3. But I really felt like in the last election, I started to see like this sort of like mindset of, if a person does not do public financing, and like they like definitely on the take from the corporate, like, is that what I mean? It's almost like with people, it's like it's not even I don't know the last candidate that I've seen, and I don't keep up on everybody, but just that did not do public financing. Like, it's almost like you do that, then you already lost. Like, what is that about? Especially in a city where I'm asking that question is specifically about DC, where it ain't like, okay, we got a lot of people struggling. We also got a lot of people doing all right. So I just don't see always like, what do you think that's about? What's the driver in that? And does that put, do you think it's fair to see it that way?
It's not fair, because what people also have to understand, in terms of without public financing, our donation limits are really low, right? Like, in a ward race, $500 is the most, right? I hope there are not people selling their soul for $500, right? And the highest amount in the mayoral race is $2,000. And I hope people ain't selling their soul for $2,000. So it's not like people are getting these like boatloads of cash and they sold out to, corporate interests. But it is a dynamic where that I don't like about where we are in the city right now. People get really dug in on one issue, and if you disagree with them on that one thing, then you're X. So, right, like I bike, I think y'all bike, right? If we have bike lanes, I support bike lanes, but if a bike lane is proposed on one street, people will say, do you support this bike lane? And if they're like, you hate bikers and you want people to die, and you're like, wow, like we it's hard to have rational conversations. And so that dynamic exists sort of across government. The number of times a week that I get the message that if I don't support X, then I like support babies dying or sold out to,
Yeah.
corporate
Yeah,
America.
yeah.
It's a lot. And I try to keep a sober head, but that stuff comes at us so much. It can get difficult to navigate.
He made a comment earlier, right? That when you just said what you said, made me think about what you said earlier about how'd you put it? You said basically for a council member in this city, even if they doing a bad job, they're working their ass.
Oh, we were talking. No. We were talking earlier. We were walking. So Scooty and I normally walk on Tuesdays. We ran into Tony, and he walked with us for a bit. We were talking about that. Like if people think that council members are sitting on their hands, they're not.
They're not. It's not like that. Ain't no way.
Let me get some perspective that most people never look at. Vermont and Wyoming have fewer people than D.C. Mm-hmm. Both of those states have large bicameral legislatures, so a House and a Senate, and they have city councils, and they have county councils. All those hundreds of people in the states with less than D.C. do the same thing that 13 members of our one legislative body do. It's a hard
And when
job.
those people move here, they are accustomed to being able to talk to their council member when they dial because of how local it is in Vermont or Wyoming, right? But they can't just get Robert White on the phone when they move here.
Yeah.
But they look at you as a council member through the lens of what a council member means in Wyoming. Not what it means
Who
in
has like
DC.
a fraction of the responsibility.
Yeah.
And then our budget alone is bigger than many states. I've lost track of how many now. And so like with the amount of money, the amount of residents, and the fact that we have one legislative body doing the work of a state legislature, city council, and county council, you are always treading water.
Yeah.
Always.
Man.
So in order to get to office, right? We've been talking about campaigns, right? In order to get to office, you got to first run. So obviously you're telling people you're going to be good at being a legislator, but you got to also be good at being a candidate, right?
Yeah.
I got to say this on the record. You might be the best fundraiser that I've seen. Period. As far as like, he called me one time. I told you. He called me one time. What's going on, Silas? I'm running again. Before I knew it, the person on the phone was collecting the credit card information.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did this happen this fast?
Yeah,
right?
man. Yeah.
It was so smooth, right? I think I called you after, like, man, I just talked to Rob.
Yeah, so Rob, so
all I know is
Like, Rob called on that.
Yeah. No, but he really wasn't saying it that way. He was just like, bruh.
I'm amazed at how fast that happened.
So it goes back to doing the things that other people don't like to do. Fundraising calls, the most miserable thing in the world.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Miserable.
Yeah.
I have to do it for hours a day to run a campaign. Hours. It's terrible. It's miserable. And then I still got to do all the other stuff too.
But it sounded like you liked it. So to hear that you didn't.
Because the response is going to be, if I sound miserable.
Yeah.
Not
How about that?
Right. Like my discipline is high level, right? Because I have a lot that I have to compensate for, but it's miserable there. So, but I do it though, and that's the difference maker, right? You might be a better legislator than me, but if you're not willing to make those fundraising calls, you won't get there.
Yeah, and some people don't. They might have somebody calling for them. Now you pick that phone up and it's the guy or the woman. Like, hey, what's up? Yeah, most ain't do. They may have some. Hey, I'm calling on behalf of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rob, I never forget this. Right, we was at Holy Redeemer. I think they was having like a Black History, event at our church or whatever. And so we kicking it for our Bible. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to think. It was my grandma? No, my grandma had passed by this time. But anyway, we had the little breakfast or whatever. It's like a men's breakfast though. Mm-hmm. And so we talking. Couple of my neighbors in the joint. So this guy, like, I get introduced to this guy. Oh, yeah, how you doing? And they're like, yeah, this Tony. He was like, yeah, you might know my son. So I'm like, I get that. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, probably. I'll be around. What's your son's name? So he was like, Rob. Oh, that's my man. You know what I'm saying? It's the first time I met your dad, right? Yeah. Talk to us a bit about that guy, man. And what that brother, man. Means to you, man. You know what I'm saying? And his impact on your life.
My dad is special, man. I mean, my dad is special. And, you know, my dad had kids early, and he had to mature a lot as a father. You know, my mom passed when I was 8. That left him as a single parent. And anybody who's a dad know moms carry a lot of weight, even if dad is showing up all the way, right? And I think my dad would admit he was, you know, not showing up all the way. But and then weeks after my mom died, I was in a near fatal car accident, left me hospitalized for weeks. And so like he has so much put on his plate at once. And I've seen my dad like grow and mature as a man. He went from being, when I was in school, the most strict parent out of any parent in the school, right?
And he's a minister too, right?
He's a minister
put that
too,
into context. Yeah.
Was he a minister then?
He became a deacon, a minister when I was early in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
okay.
like,
Okay. Got
like
you.
96, 97.
Okay. Okay.
And basically to watch him, you know, and my dad, I'm not going to tell all his business. My dad didn't have it easy growing up, which is something that we understand as fathers, right? And my dad always shows up, right? And when you work a job that gets paid by the hour and you're at every school function because you've decided, even though it's already hard to make ends meet, I know how important it is to show up for my kids to look out and see my face there. Like I learned that from my dad. If I call my dad and I say, Dad, I need you to show up for a campaign event, or Dad, I need a babysitter, it's yes about 100% of the time. Yeah. And, you know, you can, like, anybody who meets my dad knows how proud he is of me and all his kids. Yeah.
That's incredible.
But he is such a phenomenal man. He's the backbone of my family, of my church, just incredible.
Yeah, dog. You see him like in that when he didn't know I knew you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just him like he probably know my son. Like he talk about you, he beamed. But then when he knew I knew you, and every time, you know, obviously that was years ago.
Yeah.
Every time I see him, you know what I'm saying? He just has a spirit about him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's and of course, man, just, you know, I see how like people mention to me like how they look, see how my dad looks at me.
Yeah.
And so I know what that when they say that, I know what that means. I see how your father look at you. You know what I'm saying? It was also crazy that I had the opportunity to hear him tell a story about making y'all had to dig out a basement or dig out something in your house. I'm like, that was crazy because he was like, man, I ain't no money to pay for that. Me and my son, we did that. You know what I mean?
That was my summer break. Like we waterproofed the house. The house lived on a hill, which meant we had to dig it down to the basement, to the foundation. That was my summer break. Like,
he's like, had to get done.
Had to get done. That's it, right?
Get done.
Yeah, man. We did it, but I feel the same way when I see the love and passion you have for your dad and that he has for you. Like I always see that reminds me of my relationship with my father. And when I see you and your dad now, like every time I see y'all in person on IG, like I know that love that I see there, you know, and it's an amazing thing. But it also reminds me to not take it for granted. So there's a brother named Frank Malone who runs a program. 100 Fathers, right? And I went to a celebration for Frank, and they played a video of some young fathers leaving one of his programs. And when I say young, these brothers might be 19. Yeah. And they asked, the question that the interviewer asked was, what did you learn? And the first brother they interviewed said, I learned that spending time with my daughter is more valuable than anything I could buy her. And that was profound for me because I know that intuitively because I was parented in a way that taught me that. And it reminds me that, like, when people are like, well, we need to hold parents accountable, there's some truth to that. We also need to remember that a lot of these parents weren't parented. Correct. And we can take for granted the fact that we know how to parent because of the way that we were parented or that our communities poured into us. And a lot of folks didn't know that. So this brother, me hearing this brother say, I learned this today, you know?
Right.
3-5 years after you've been a father, that was profound for me. So and so I feel just so lucky that I have the dad that I have.
Yeah, man.
So having had and still having a great father in your corner supporting you, you know that intimately, right? a lot of the things that you all as a council have to consider when it comes to youth and crime and things of that nature, everyone's saying it's the parents' fault or the parents are not involved, right? So you look at it through a lens of, man, my dad was incredible.
Yeah.
But not every parent, as you mentioned, knows how to parent. Yeah. How does that, I guess, dichotomy impact how you weigh in on issues specific to youth crime in DC?
Yeah. So when I'm at community meeting after community meeting and everybody's saying we need to hold parents accountable, and I'm thinking about what I saw in that video tribute to Frank Malone, or I'm thinking about a mom that in my first year at the council called me and asked me to come visit her because she said she was doing everything she can to get her son to go to school and he won't do it. And she was afraid for his life. I'm thinking about a mom like that. And what I want communities to understand is it's hard to distinguish between that mother and a mother who is neglectful, because a lot of times the outcome looks the same.
Correct.
So I try to speak to people who are talking about parent accountability from the frame of what does parent accountability look like? Because once you start to try to put words to what it looks like and how you would want it to apply to that mother, then it makes you sort of redirect what accountability looks like. Maybe accountability means I'm gonna pull y'all in to understand whether or not you are doing your job as a parent, or there are more resources that you need. Yeah, as opposed to anytime a young person commits a crime, we're going to try to penalize the parent. We're going to lock them up or fine them. You know, that would create more problems than it would solve.
Facts. And I think that parental stabilization is the real route to helping our youth make better decisions and not be as involved in crime, not being truant. When you're looking at the youth that's getting in trouble, when you look at those that are the adults that are going to prison, the adults that are housing insecure, the adults that are battling addiction, these aren't different families.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They might show up at different, but these aren't different families. These are really the same families.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so how do we, what is your vision about what can we do more of to target those families holistically to minimize the need for us to continue to have these conversations, moving forward?
Yeah, we have to meet them where they are. I mean, some of the families are looking for the resources and they don't know how to find it. Some of them are looking for it. So we got to make it easy for them to find. But I think the more we pour into families and parents, the better off we're going to be as a city. And again, if there are parents who are neglecting their jobs as parents, as opposed to those who may not know how to do it, or who have young people who just aren't listening, we can help those parents. And so start to solve big chunks of the problem. Like what if we only helped the parents who wanted help? That's going to be a big part of the problem. You're going to get a whole lot of the parents that you need already. And so start somewhere.
And they just know where to go for the help. I don't want to backtrack or change course, but you didn't gloss over it, but you said we were talking about your dad.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to not just like as a kid, you lost your mom at 8, you said.
Yeah.
And I don't know, this is not, I don't know this to be fact, right? I don't know this to be fact. But you also mentioned that, moms be having just a different load.
Yeah.
Because they're moms.
Yeah.
Right? We come out of them, bro. It's just different, right? And in the community, in terms of norms, unfortunately, with you more accustomed to people, dad either not being, just say dad not being there for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Right? But when mom ain't there, that shit has a different impact.
Yeah.
Right? Can you talk to us about a bit what was that like, and then how does that impact you now as a legislator, when you think about kids that are losing their mothers and fathers in various ways, right? Because you can identify with that kid. If a kid has lost their parent in this city, you know what that feels like, rather no matter how they lost them. So can you talk to us a bit about that?
Man, it was hard. It is hard. I was a mama's boy, and so like the sensitivity often that comes from mom, you know, and a lot of the coordination, the grace of parenting often comes from mom. So, you know, let me give maybe a more humorous example. Next week is the last week of school. If my wife wasn't in the picture, these girls wouldn't be in summer camp, because you got to be thinking of summer camp sign up in January, right? Right. So, but it's like that's just one example of like 40 a week, right? And my dad ain't have it together, man. So it was ungraceful, right? It was ungraceful.
I get it.
But it's also the type of thing, like, it impacted me in school in ways that I couldn't articulate. It impacted my mental health in ways that I couldn't articulate. And, you know, when kids are facing the loss of parents, whether it's because they passed away or they didn't know them or they got locked up, those kids are impacted, and it's affecting how they react to things and people. How they do in school. And so my brother and I, again, really close in age, I think we dealt with our mom's loss very differently, you know? He could probably say the same about me, but I can look at my brother even today in our 40s and say, I know the roots of that thing right there, you know? And so, like, these things don't just go away, don't wear off. And when we talk about, like, crime in the city and addiction, and we're just mad, and people are like, we got to punish. Well, you can't punish away the trauma of all those kids who lost parents, all the violence they see in front of them, all the neglect that they've been through. And then those folks are going to be parents one day.
Facts.
And if they, you know, like, therapy was not a thing in our dialogue growing up. It wasn't like my family was anti. I didn't even know what it was until I was in like my mid-30s.
I think people I do want to raise up something that happened to me in that vein.
Yeah.
I was at Stuart Hobson. It's probably a month ago. And, you know, we're going over the book, and, you know, my mother dealing with mental illness, you know what I'm saying? My father being like that. And the little girl asked me, I thought it was beautiful though. She was like, you know, what did you do to work on your mental health? I was like, what? I was like, an hour a day that wasn't a subject.
Right.
But it also screamed to me that it is for them.
Yes.
And I think I thought that was
the game
beautiful,
changer.
bro.
It is beautiful. These young
We're talking
people,
about 7th grade, bro, or 6th grade or something.
Yeah.
I thought that was just phenomenal, the way she said that.
That was not in our thinking, our vocabulary.
At all.
Yeah, at all.
At all,
I
bro.
love it. I love it. And I try to talk, you know, you talk about it. Trayon talks about it. Yeah, I like as a black man, I feel like I have an obligation to talk about therapy to help normalize it, because we got to pay attention to mental health, and you know, Lord, if we don't, it's things get worse and not better.
And I think that when things show up in our city, the unfortunate things, especially when it comes to black people, and more specifically black men, that don't be on the table.
Yeah.
We see these horrific. Nobody is really, and I get it. I'm not judging, because I know nobody should victimize anybody. That's full stop. We understand that.
Yeah.
So that's not about that. But what I try to convey to people though, you gotta understand that ain't just happen. Like, that person ain't just get up this morning and say, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Folks are walking into this. They're dealing with things in their lives that are that we have to help people heal.
That's right.
Right, in order to keep it, that has to be part of our safety plan.
Yeah.
Helping people heal, man, because otherwise, you know, it's gonna be difficult.
Yeah, but if we do help people heal, I mean, it's gonna be a much different situation.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And for that 7th grader, 6th, 7th grader, you know, and when she said, the whole class was like, yeah, like, you know what I mean? Without even saying
matter
it.
of fact.
Yeah, that wasn't like, yeah, exactly. And I was like, man, okay, DC. Like, that made me feel proud. Like, all right, DC, we making this accessible to our young people earlier, you know, very early. And even my daughter, like, Izzy, go see her name Miss Williams, man. Shout out to Miss Williams, man, at Inspired Teaching. That's her, she behavior health person there, man.
Yeah.
Man, she didn't help my baby. And it's like, again, and this year, Izzy been flying because of the tools.
Yeah.
And Talisha Ellaby too. I want to shout out to her as well. And all of the kings and the queens working in that space. Dr. Charlene Hailing Williams.
Oh yeah, I saw her yesterday.
Yeah, Dr. C, all the great work that Community Wellness Ventures is doing at Pathways. Another group, these young men, I watched them do one-on-one therapy. Like that's revolutionary. Like they seek it out. It's changing the game. And then so if the kids are getting it in these different pockets, we're making it more accessible for adults. Right. And to your point, then now we normalize it. Now, you know what I mean? Now people say, okay, I can talk to folks. Like if, you know, somebody told me this a long time ago, man, you sprain your ankle, where you going? I'd be like, I'm going to the doctor.
Right.
So like we've been fractured, man. We go through trauma, man. So anyway, I didn't want to go on that soliloquy, but I think it's important time back to when we were kids, you know what I mean? And those type of resources not being available, you had to deal with it. You know what I mean? Like I said, for me, I don't even know. I don't know if I dealt with it. I don't know. I just
it was life. And when you get to a healthier place as an adult and you realize like that wasn't normal, like the things I was going through and dealing with mentally. So I read a book a few years ago called The Warmth of Other Suns.
Yes.
This was Isabel Wilkerson. I love that book for so many reasons. One of the connections it helped me make, because I read the stories of folks, this is about the Great Migration for folks who haven't read it, post-slavery up to the north, where with thousands, maybe millions of black people moved up north for better lives. But when they moved here, they moved with the trauma of being enslaved and Jim Crowed and beaten and chased. You know, they had to escape, most of them, right? And that trauma came with them. And so you saw a lot of alcoholism, you know, abuse and other destructive behaviors. And that passed on to their kids. And it made me kind of think about the challenges I've seen in my family and in my community, and realize like the intergenerational connection to slavery. One, it makes more sense to me, but two, it reminds me of our obligation to deal with our traumas so that we don't keep passing them down generation after generation. So, you know, as a parent, it's a bad joke. I have a bad sense of humor. I say, I don't want my girls to have intergenerational trauma. I want them to have their own fresh trauma.
You're right. New trauma. Yeah, let's.
The reality is, if you parenting, you doing some things wrong.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, but
that's right.
But I want to break those. You know,
Nah,
we
for
get
sure.
to in this generation, we get to break those intergenerations, those cycles, and that's a powerful thing.
Yeah,
That really is.
we had Kenyon on a few weeks ago, and he was talking about, you know, mortality, right? And he said that if I go, I know my kids are good because my wife is there, right?
Yeah.
And I found it to be so profound, right? Him giving that much honor and recognition to his wife. Now that you've got your own family, right? And you have the fortunate capability of co-parenting with your wife, right? And you have that advantage over your dad. Talk about your wife and her influence on your family.
But my wife has no equal on this earth. I mean, she, in my head, she's like an octopus, right? Like the number of things she's handling on a daily basis is mind-blowing to me. And I want to make sure people know my wife is a skilled attorney. Like, so she has a full-time job at the Securities and Exchange Commission, and she's a litigator. But she also, because of that, like the demands on my schedule as a council member, she handles so much stuff, the logistics of like summer camp, groceries, aftercare, sports leagues, signing up for like, ballet daycare. I'm just trying to like keep up the show, like it look like I'm contributing something, But she's a beast, and I mean, yeah, she's just a beast.
And by the way, right, we've laughed about this. All the men that I know that are in this sort of work, like Tony, myself, Kenyon, we've laughed about it, right? All of our wives seem to not like be interested at all in like the social aspect of like politics, right? And it's funny, like I've never really officially met your wife.
Oh my goodness.
But we've been around each other a lot. And I know for a fact, like, I'm not one to walk up and be like, oh yeah, I know your husband, he's a council member, right? Yeah. But I can tell she's kind of like, you know what? I'm just at the birthday party. I'm at the play date for the kids. Because the last time I saw her was at Shepherd. She happened to walk up with the kids. We were all up there, me, Ron, Jabri, a few other guys, right?
Right.
And I noticed that kind of pattern. Like most of the wives are not really into that at all.
She's not. My wife, like she tolerates my work. Like she never saw herself in like the public eye. She doesn't look for it. I know I got like a limit on like 2-3 like like highfalutin political events a year. And if it don't have an open bar in music, I need not even ask her.
Yeah.
She ain't going.
You already know that.
But if you see her, just approach her casually. What's up? And that's the better route for her.
But you know what? I mean, I think I can speak to this though in all our situations though. All of our marriage, as a couple though, what I saw it with my own eyes with all of us though, is that your wife into you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is, so I can tell that, like with Jess with me, like she into me. She may not even really want to be there, but she with me. Yeah. And she has fun with me. You know what I'm saying? And I see that with y'all. You know what I mean? Like even when I saw y'all last, I think it was at the Grammys maybe.
Yeah.
Or something else. I said, I'm like, yo, she into Rob, like y'all lock in step. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, it's clear in all of our situations. That's why we here. That's why they our queens for real. Like that's kind of how it go for real, man. That's necessary. We need that.
We do. And I'm lucky too. I'm sure y'all feel the same way. People also don't understand. She's my secret weapon. Like that is my chief counsel. Mm-hmm. If I got a problem,
I've heard that about her.
I'm taking it to her, and she gonna.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Like I'm always asking. I'm like, babe, would you consider making a little bit less money and working with me? Like, babe, you can't afford me. Not even close.
Right.
Yeah.
I like how you said working with me. Yeah. I like how you said that.
That's a lot. But it's a no for her.
Yeah. That's all right. And I think I don't know if I've always. Some of us we get lucky, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We get lucky, bro.
God be looking out sometimes.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Bro. Yeah. I'm so in so many ways. I tell her I mess with her a lot. I said, man, you get on my nerve. You know what I'm saying? But I wouldn't change nothing in the world because them spots where I'm weak, bro.
Yeah.
She's strong.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I ain't talking about just like a weak moment of emotion. I'm talking about skill set. Just so when you said that, just made me think about it. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't even be here. I can tell you literally, and I've told this story before, but Connecticut Avenue, Cold Stone, it's raining one night. We just starting to date. I'm in the car telling her, this is when I was considering running for ANC, right? 2006 or so, 2005. And I'm like, I think I want to give back. I want to do this. I want to do that. And she was like, just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
And nobody had ever like pushed it back on me that way. So you wouldn't even know Silas in this capacity if it were not for her.
Make that two of us, brother. Yeah. I said, I think I could do something. She said, when I met you in law school, I knew you were going to go this route. Here are the next 2 steps you need to take.
That's it. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
That's all right. That's a big deal, man. That's a big deal. So we are in a city that has grown in so many ways, right? People from all over the world flock here for opportunity. They tell their friends when they get here, you need to come. You need to come. And that's a beautiful thing. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. We have people that are born and raised here that see that very same place. And I made this point from a different place. See this very same place as a place where there's no opportunity.
Yeah.
As somebody from here, right? As an example of what's possible from here.
Yeah.
What do you say to that? What do you say to those people? Our people, Washingtonians, people born and raised here. What do you say to them? And what like how do you like whatever you would say to them? How do you take that down on that dais or down at the Wilson Building and try to make that a reality?
So it's I think what it is, it's almost the same as like an immigrant mindset. You know, one of the reasons people who immigrate to the United States often accelerate so much more quickly is because they don't have the baggage that we have. They come with this idea that you can do anything in the United States if you work for it, and they believe it enough that they go do it. And for so many native Washingtonians, one, they see the difference between what the city used to be and what it is now, and so they're saddled with a disappointment. For others, they see opportunity, they see things happening, and they're not included, and they're saddled with that. And I think it weighs people down. Whereas when people move here, they're like, this is a place, I mean, this is like the mecca for black excellence, right? And you move here and you see it. It's the same thing that native Washingtonians, it's in front of them, but they don't see it. Yeah. And so what I bring to the Wilson Building is the knowledge that we have to help Washingtonians, native Washingtonians, believe that the city can work for them. You know, without that level of belief, they're going to keep being weighed down, you know, and that's a hard thing. That's one of the things I really liked about the Don't Mute DC movement, is that folks felt like they could win something.
Yeah.
And once you see that you won something, you believe that you can win again. Yep. And I wanted us to keep building on that.
Something worth something. That was something for people that some people felt like it was worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Right. I think, and I want people to. A lot of times, I think I'll be talking to folks, and I'll be wanting them to feel like that about them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I feel like, but we gotta feel like that about them. But I want you to feel like that about you. Worth fighting for. You know what I mean? Yeah. Your family, your community is worth fighting for, and you can win.
Yeah.
Right? Like you.
Yeah.
You can win. I think it's examples of that. More examples of that. Honestly, now, even in the midst of all of it, than we've seen before.
Yeah.
People that we can point to. That's of us that you can say, look, you know what I mean? You may not have to do it the way that they did it.
Exactly.
But you can do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, but you can't win if you don't fight.
Can't. That's it. Just don't quit. Don't throw in the towel. And so many times I think when we see what we're seeing in our community and as it relates, particularly as it relates to like violence, you know, crime and things like that. And in so many ways, that's people throwing in the towel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's people saying, I mean, we battling some interesting things right now, even on the addiction side of things, you know? So many overdose and things of that nature. But again, it's the same folks. It's our folks.
Yep.
And I personally would like to see, I want to get your thoughts on this. I would personally like to see, everybody know this, so this ain't news, record selling, right? You've done a ton of, you did from Store to Vote, Morka was under your committee, you put money to grow Morka's budget, stuff to ensure that people was getting touched prior to coming home, you know, as far as being able to get their ID and get the Metro stuff. And I remember all that. Get to vote. Yeah. I mean, things too, I don't know. I'm gonna let me ask that question. Let me ask this question first. For real, why do you, and these are significant contributions to our reentry infrastructure and our return to citizens. Why do you think you get do you think when people think about all these things that that have happened and the great things that we have for reentry, you think you pop up in their mind?
Nah, definitely not.
Right? Can you talk about how does that make you feel?
I mean, if I'm honest, I feel I wish people knew the work that I did and that I do, but I also recognize that the work is more important than the praise. And I think too often people focus on the praise. And frankly, like once you start getting recognized, more and more people recognize you. But I kind of believe in the universe, right? Like it's going to be okay.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like, my work is working and it moves the way it's supposed to. If I had to choose between the results and the recognition, I'm gonna choose the results 100% of the time. Because I gotta go to bed at night, and I gotta explain to my girls like what I do with my time, when I'm late. So, all that to say, I wish people knew more, because also if there was more recognition, people would sort of understand why I do the work that I do more. But I'm also doing all right, So
no, for sure, sure. It just and oftentimes if I, Rob did that, what I'm saying, like, for real. Like, damn, I ain't know that. It don't be super shocked. It just be like, damn, I wouldn't have thought that. I'd be like, why? And I've been often, one of the things that in terms of the bill to around children with incarcerated parents, I just want to say again, for me personally, how important that was, what I'm saying? And to any kids like me all around but this is the thing, for us to do that here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And shout out to Ruby May too, who tried to do it something similar when she was on the council and it ain't make it out committee.
Yeah.
And then for you to take that up, man, and say, man, I'm gonna do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also I've been in conversations nationally with Ebony and We Got Us Now and things of that nature, and being able, I guess I underestimated to be able to point and Ebony, they going around and can say in DC they did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So when legislators need precedent, what hasn't been, and they can point and say,
once something's been done, you can't say it's impossible. So
thank you for that, man.
Absolutely. So two things I would say. One, all the work I've done around the reentry space and for people who are incarcerated, all of those ideas came from people who were incarcerated or had close family members who were incarcerated. So children of incarcerated parents came from you. Restoring voting rights for incarcerated people came from the Commission on Reentry. Sure. What I contributed was the strategy and sort of using my office. You got to make it a major part of what you're doing because you got to be committed to getting it done. But the other thing is, I got something I'm working on that is going to help us expand that work for voting rights for incarcerated people that I can't mention quite yet because I'm working out a couple kinks, but we're about to have some, we're going to have some lawyers across the country who understand this issue a little differently and how to move it through legislatures across the country. So I'm working on something. So that work ain't done.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Sure enough.
One of the themes that has come up in this conversation is you being a black man.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to unpack something for a minute. So I'm thinking back to like maybe 15 years ago when the council had a whole different makeup of people. And at that time, there were like 5 or 6 black men in office, right? And they were all vying for different positions. Mm-hmm. And I look at now, you've got Trayon, you've got Kenyon, you've got Zachary, now Wendell, presumed winner, now as a nominee for Ward 7 as a Democrat. And with all the ambition, with all of the desires to go to the next level, whatever that may be, you've talked about this a lot, Tony. At the core of most problems, if not all, black men, right? Every issue we're thinking about, right? They're either like the culprit or the victim, right? And I'm wondering, is there a way, and you don't have to divulge if you guys have had this conversation, but is there a way for you guys to create a synergy where you work together on some things, despite the fact that they may be vying interests that are the same, right?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, because what I don't want is for us to squander this moment where we've got 5 or 6 black men that are mostly from here,
yeah,
and because of the, pursuits that we miss working together.
Yeah.
So talk a bit about what it is to work with them, and can you guys come together on some things to make some things happen?
You know, that's a good question. The simple answer is yes, we can. And I think as we understand, black men are not a monolith.
Yep.
That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, right? And so that makes working together a challenge, because sometimes we just disagree on various aspects of it. But I think if we can find and create a space where we're trying to work together, and we're challenging each other, and we're supporting each other to whatever degree, I think we can get a lot done. And this is a window of time that, like, to your point, we can't squander it. And so I think we're better if we create an agenda. There can be things outside the agenda that we just disagree and squabble over. But if we can create an agenda and say we're going to get these things done,
Sure.
who's going to stop us?
Because Tony and I have had conversations offline. We like, man, I hope they talking.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Especially about those issues. These conversations are really rooted in, and when you look at most of the issues in the city, like the ills,
Yeah.
particularly around crime and addiction and things of that nature. I think people underestimate it is by and large black males, period. From youth to adults.
Yeah.
Full stop, right?
Yeah.
And so, and not seeing enough, like, the ideas, the remedies, of course, man, I know we don't have to say this, but this is not to say that other voices aren't valuable and important. We already know that.
Yeah.
But the deepest understanding of those issues are gonna be from black men who lived it, who know it, right? And have to lead us in the direction of finding the solutions along with the other voices. But that is real, and it's like one of the we hope we like, man. You know what I mean? I hope them brothers, and we also are men. We know ego, but the greater good, man.
Yeah, we got to do it. So it's interesting. This actually relates to the conversation around credit for reentry. One of the things I believe is that credit is the enemy of progress. And so when I was doing the majority of my reentry work in my first term, I'm telling my team, look, we don't do a lot of the spotlight stuff. And then I had to run for re-election. People were like, what have you done? And I was like, well, I got to figure this out. I got to figure out the balance here, right?
Right.
Sure. But I think that, we need to, as black men, generally, but also on the council, we need to come together and understand that credit is the enemy of progress. Like, we kind of got to work as a unit, on some things, at least on this agenda. And I think if we can do that, we can do some profound things in the next couple of years. Because you're right, most of these issues as well come back to black men. Yeah,
sure.
So we talked about, you winning this election, now being the Democratic nominee. I just referenced Wendell Felder. Brand spanking new, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not specific to him, but just with your 7 years of experience in the office, what would you say to a person like him, like a week after winning the election? What advice would you give them right now?
Here's the advice right now. Brother, some of the people who supported you winning the seat are going to be the first ones to turn their back on you. Some of the people who didn't support you are going to end up being some of your strongest supporters. And don't burn any bridge that doesn't absolutely have to be burnt. Because you never know when you're going to need that person or that person's going to need you.
That's it.
Congratulations to Wendell.
Yeah, congratulations.
Shout out to one of the things that we talked about on this show was about the incredible promise, like, to me, that race represented in what, in terms of what this city produces. Like, honestly, I don't know last time we seen like that many.
Yeah, I saw Ebony Rose's video today, which I thought was really well.
A lot of class, man. You know what I'm saying, bro? It's that kind of stuff. That stuff, I mean, I know nobody likes to lose, but I mean, we gonna hear from all them people. And we, you know what I mean? We need all them people around, exactly, man. This is a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah, for those folks in that race, I know what it is to lose a race. You know, the first one I lost, and actually many of the folks in that race, we ran against each other, became some of my closest friends. One of the people in that race was Wendell.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, he
2014.
did. Yeah, I remember that.
He was a young cat.
check that out.
In fact, several of us donated to his campaign. We loved what he was sort of building into. But the thing that I've learned, God has a plan, and sometimes you feel like you lost something and you won, but you don't know it yet.
Yeah.
So when you said like we're gonna hear from a lot of these folks again, we are, because that was some talent in the ward,
especially homegrown like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think, again, man, no matter who you support, whatever, I that's all that kept like just hitting me. Like, dang, man, look at all the people that's from these. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's strong. How did you feel about the voter turnout this election?
It was rough, as it has been. So voter turnout is rough, but I think most of that comes back to the fact that people in their day-to-day often don't believe, one, that people in government work for them, because that's not the narrative, and two, they don't believe that it matters who gets elected, because everybody's going to do the same thing, and that's tough. And finding a way to resonate with people who just don't believe that this stuff works or can work in their interests is one of the toughest parts of my job, because I want people to believe. I want them to see my work. I want them to give me feedback. But that's a tough one. Yeah. And if folks after Trump don't believe that it matters who they vote for, I'm like, man, what's it going to take?
Yeah, I know, right?
What is it going to take? And so maybe there's maybe there's more we can do in schools, to start to help folks look at.
I want to teach civics,
politicians differently.
I've really been working on I've done it to young learners and adults, right? You wouldn't be blown away, but when I say people don't know nothing about civic stuff, like politics, how many people on the council, what ward they live in, who's your ward, people just don't know. I'd be like, wow. So, I definitely think that need to start in school.
Dude, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Black Swan Academy.
Yes, I met them through you.
Love them.
Man, they do amazing work.
And if we could get that into every school, I think it would be good. It teaches young people how local politics works, and more importantly, empowers and teaches them how to make a difference, how to advocate for their needs. I love it.
That's golden.
Yeah, it's powerful.
I think it was 2 years ago you ran for mayor. And obviously there are things that you can do as a mayor that you can't do in the council. Top line vision. What's one thing that you would change or modify if you were in that seat that you feel you can't do as a council member?
As a mayor, I would set the top 3 goals for the city. So this is where we want to be in 3 years. I would empower the council to work with me to map out how we get from here to there. That way, you have everybody shooting at the same target, and everybody has an interest in making it work, because you didn't sort of take up all the credit. You say, look, I'm the mayor. I'm going to set the strategic vision, but I want you to help fill in the gaps. So all of a sudden, you have this machine starting to work towards these very clear goals, and you measure your progress. And I think if people see the government working on a bigger level, they're going to start to see where they can plug in and believe that it can work. But I think people first have to see the vision, and that's the biggest thing. If people know where they're going, they can buy in. But if you don't know where you're going, there's nothing to buy into. So it's that strategic vision, and what I believe we can be, and I think what a lot of people believe we can be, even if everybody doesn't know what all the meat on the bones looks like, it's a beautiful thing. We think about DC in the 90s. For all our problems, when you was a kid and it was summertime, It's gonna be block parties. You know, that doesn't matter. You're gonna show up there. You open the cooler. There's gonna be Huggies in that cooler. You know, Georgia Avenue Day. You know, and
community.
Yeah, and it's that like level of community that like had this warmth and this tightness that I do believe we can be again. But we have to see it first. We can build anything that we can see, but we got to see it first.
There's 5 little girls represented in this room right now, right? All of them under the age of 12, right?
Yeah.
I think Izzy might be the oldest. She's like 11.
Yeah, she'll be 11 in October.
Already,
right? What does DC look like in general, but specifically for those 5 girls? From your perspective, let's say 15 years from now.
So DC is going to remain diverse. It should still, should still be a very black city, you know, in terms of population size, in terms of leadership. And I think for those girls, 15 years, they see the value in their city. They see their place in it, so that they don't struggle with what Tony said earlier, people from here not appreciating the beauty of it as much, or some of us who are older, we look back fondly on what used to be and sort of miss it. And I think there's a new level of that thing, you know, and I think that has to be here in 15 years. But that requires some active work from us, because if we don't preserve the culture, if we don't preserve and rebuild the things that were beautiful to us about the city growing up, they will be lost, because a lot of folks here now are not from here originally. But the good thing is that when we grew up, I don't think a lot of people moved to DC with the intention to stay. Like I would always hear folks from New York say, "Man, this ain't New York. I'm just here for a job and I'm going back."
That's it.
We were from LA, they didn't get DC. People from other places, they were here for a stop in their journey. I think most people who move to DC now intend to stay, and that's a
they
good
get
thing.
tattoos on it, the DC flag on their arm now and everything. Yeah.
We love this place.
So that's a good thing. There's a lot to build on, but we got to build it.
Yeah, sure.
Well, now we appreciate you coming through. And we appreciate your interest in coming through, right? Like you reached out to us like, man, I want to sit and talk to y'all, man.
I love it, man.
Appreciate it.
And congratulations again on the nomination.
Thank you.
We're sure things are going to go well for you in November, but you're going to keep doing the work.
That's right.
And we appreciate your service.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, we really appreciate it. I think you represent what Heart of the City is about, and trying to extract that excellence out of people. And you gave a lot of good information today, so we really appreciate you coming by.
Man, I appreciate y'all having me. Most importantly, I appreciate y'all doing this. This is work too. You know, y'all got jobs, families, and lives, but you do this, and it's a beautiful thing. So thanks for doing it, and thank you for letting me be a part of it today.
Yeah. And thank you guys for listening to us as well and watching us. Like the channel, subscribe,
share all that,
leave the comments,
repost all that
good stuff. Yeah. We're going to be off for a few weeks. You're going to Brazil, right?
Yeah, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah, going to Brazil for a couple weeks, man. Looking forward to that, man. You know what I'm saying? Unplug, you know what I mean? We'll come back. I might do the whole next show in Portuguese, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know, when I come back, I might, it ain't no telling. I'm not sure, you know, what I'll be when I come back, man, but I'll be back.
You pronounced it different. How you pronounce it? What?
Portuguese.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
Salvador de Bahia, man. That's where we going. So I'm looking forward to that,
Safe
man.
travels, man. Hope y'all have a lot of fun,
thank
too.
you, bro. Appreciate it, man. Yes, sir.
Thank y'all again for watching Heart of the City. One love.
Heart of the City.